Beautiful Chisholm woke every morning. As the sun rose over the bustling streets of Owerri, she would step out of her room dressed in vibrant Ankara fabrics that clung perfectly to her curves. Mirrors were her closest companions. She often paused in front of them, turning slowly from side to side. "I must marry a rich man no matter what," she whispered to herself as she ran her fingers through her hair. "I cannot suffer. I am too beautiful." Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Chinedu, adored her. Chisholm was their only daughter, and in their eyes, she could do no wrong. She was pampered beyond reason, allowed to skip chores, freed from responsibilities. Her two brothers, Ike and Benjamin, could never escape. Breakfast was served to her room. Her brothers, however, did not escape her sharp tongue. Ike would try to tease her. Benjamin would try to drag her into chores, and she would sweep them aside with a flick of her hand. To Chisholm, life was a game she had already won. Work, school, effort, these were for ordinary people. She had beauty, and she would wield it as currency. She strolled the streets of Owerri as if the town itself existed to showcase her. Market vendors paused to admire her confidence. "What do I need school for?" she would say, tossing her hair over her shoulder. "My husband will provide. Education is for people who will struggle. I will not struggle." And so she spent her days draped in beauty, walking, singing, and dreaming of the day a wealthy man would appear to claim her. Then one afternoon, walking past the busy streets, she saw him. Chidi. He was standing by his car, the type of man Owerri admired silently, confident, composed, wealthy. His car gleamed, announcing his presence before he even entered the street, and his posture spoke of a life built carefully, a man who had struggled and survived. Chisholm stopped mid-step, her heart skipping. This was the one she had been waiting for. Her mind raced with plans and dreams. She adjusted her dress, flipped her hair, and walked toward him with the kind of confident stride that only a woman certain of her allure could command. And in that bustling street of Owerri, as Chidi looked up and their eyes met for the first time, the story of Chisholm was about to begin. She played her part and Chidi fell in love. Chidi's mansion stood like a monument to success in the heart of Owerri, its walls gleaming, surrounded by manicured gardens. From the moment Chisholm laid eyes on it, her heart raced. This was the life she had dreamed of: wealth, comfort, admiration. And now it seemed within reach. Chidi was everything she had envisioned in a husband. Handsome, composed, confident, yet with a quiet charm that spoke of intelligence and experience. He was not flashy with words but carried an authority that made people listen. During their dating days, Chidi took her to elegant restaurants, drove her around in polished cars, and introduced her to the kind of people who lived in luxury she had only imagined. Chisholm loved it. Every glance at a chandelier, every sip of expensive wine, every whispered compliment about her dress, made her feel that she had arrived at the life she deserved. She walked beside him, laughing, her head held high, thinking that she was finally where she belonged. Other suitors still tried to win her attention, but Chisholm waved them off with the casual dismissal that came naturally to her. One day, an engineer with a kind smile and a gentle voice approached her. "Chisholm," he said, "I believe we could grow together, build a life of love and partnership." She laughed, tossing her hair over her shoulder. "Grow together? Love does not pay rent, thank you very much."
I love you, let's build life together.
Build what together? Go and make money, poor man.
She quipped. As their courtship continued, Chidi's subtle attentions became more deliberate. He respected her confidence and her pride, never trying to change her, only to match her step for step. Chisholm found herself enjoying the attention, basking in the admiration he offered. He complimented her beauty, and treated her like someone who belonged in his world. To Chisholm, each gesture reinforced the belief that she had found the perfect man, the perfect life, the perfect combination of admiration and security. Chidi, aware of her dreams and her pride, treated her with quiet patience, never revealing any doubts, only offering gestures that reinforced the world she had already built in her imagination. The wedding was everything she had dreamed of, lavish, filled with laughter and applause, her family and friends celebrating her triumph. Chisholm's heart swelled with pride as she stepped into the life she had long imagined, confident that she had secured the perfect marriage. And yet, as she prepared to enter Chidi's mansion for the first time as his bride, a small flutter of suspense touched her chest, a whisper of curiosity she could not name. She could not have known that this night, the night she believed would mark the pinnacle of her dreams, would instead become the beginning of a reality that would challenge everything she thought she knew about love, loyalty, and herself. Chisholm's heels clicked against the polished floor, and she paused at the threshold of Chidi's house, ready to step into what she believed would be a fairy tale. And then, as she opened the door, her eyes fell on a figure she did not expect, an elegant woman, calm and poised, seated on the couch, looking directly at her. She was not flustered, not surprised. She sat calmly, an elegant figure in a nightgown, her eyes fixed on Chisholm with a quiet, knowing amusement. For a moment, Chisholm thought she must be dreaming.
Who is she?
Oh, I
Chisholm
forgot.
demanded,
Meet my first
her
wife.
voice
Hey,
sharp.
make us dinner.
Chidi, standing beside her, looked oddly calm. Oh, he said, as if he had forgotten to mention something obvious. Chisholm, my wife, meet Ada. She's my first wife. Chisholm blinked, her mind spinning. First wife. But she had been told this was her wedding, her house, her new life. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. First wife? What do you mean? How can this be? Ada, seated with the poise of someone who had lived 1,000 confident days, laughed softly. Young lady, she said, tilting her head. Go and change, then fix us something to eat. Her tone was neither cruel nor friendly, just matter-of-fact, commanding, as though Chisholm were nothing more than a guest in her house. Chisholm's mind exploded. Fix something to eat. Change. What was going on? This was supposed to be her home. This was supposed to be her victory. Chisholm turned to Chidi, her eyes wide, searching for some explanation. Why did you not tell me about her? She asked, her voice trembling. Chidi ran a hand through his hair, as if weighing his words. I thought it was better this way, he said slowly, carefully. Ada has been in my life for a long time. She is my number one person, Chisholm. You'll understand in time. Understand? Chisholm repeated, her voice rising. You call this understanding? You call this my wedding? My life? She looked back at Ada, who merely smiled faintly, a glimmer of superiority in her eyes. Chisholm felt the walls of her dream closing in around her. The perfect life she had imagined was crumbling with every passing second. She glanced at Chidi again. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Chisholm, I know this is difficult, but you must understand. Ada has been with me since our university days. She was there when I had nothing, when I was struggling to make something of myself. She knows me in a way no one else does. Chisholm's mind reeled. University days. Nothing. She felt like she had been thrust into a play where she did not know her role. She wanted to scream, to run, to demand that he explain himself fully, but her voice faltered. You mean she is more important than me? She whispered, disbelief cutting through her pride. Chidi shook his head, not unkindly. Not more important, Chisholm, but different. Our past is complicated. We had plans once, but some things prevented us from being together the way we wanted. That does not mean you are not my wife. Legally, you are. Emotionally, well, it will take time for you to understand. Chisholm looked back at Ada, who now rose from the couch with effortless grace. She moved around the room, straightening a cushion, adjusting a photo frame, all without a word to Chisholm. Every movement seemed to underline Chisholm's sudden insignificance in this house. The mansion, the wealth, the admiration, all of it seemed hollow compared to the quiet authority Ada exuded. And in that moment, standing in her wedding dress, in a house that was no longer entirely hers. Chisholm understood that her fairy tale had a twist she had not anticipated. Chisholm had entered Chidi's mansion thinking she had everything. But within days of living there, reality began to settle over her like a cold, heavy cloth. She had her own space, a beautifully furnished room that felt more like a gilded cage than a home. She was legally Chidi's wife, yet every corner of the mansion reminded her that she was not truly first. Ada's presence lingered everywhere, not just in the house, but in the history, the routines, and the habits Chidi carried from years of partnership and familiarity. Chisholm soon discovered chores she had never imagined were part of daily life. Ada, though polite, had left subtle instructions for her: tidy the kitchen, organize the pantry, make sure the house ran smoothly. Chisholm approached the tasks with hesitation and pride, certain that she should be exempt. She tried cooking for the first time in the mansion's grand kitchen, imagining a scene where Chidi would look at her and smile in admiration. Instead, flour spilled onto the floor, the stew burned slightly at the edges, and she dropped a plate, which clattered against the marble with a sound that echoed through the house. Ada, passing by, paused for a moment, a faint smirk crossing her elegant features, and continued walking without a word. Chisholm's cheeks burned red, and she muttered under her breath, "I cannot believe this. I am a wife, not a servant." Yet the lessons continued. Chidi, as if unconcerned with her embarrassment, took phone calls from Ada while she tried to manage breakfast. "Have you eaten?" he asked her gently during a call, but Chisholm heard the tenderness reserved entirely for Ada. He reminded her to lock up the shop well, promised to stop by tomorrow, and spoke with a softness Chisholm had never experienced from him. When he ended the call, Chisholm's voice trembled with frustration. "Who was that?" she asked, half laughing, half snarling. "My best friend," Chidi said simply, as if that explained everything. "She's like a first wife, Chisholm. You'll understand one day." Chisholm did not understand. Her pride clashed with reality every hour. Ada's subtle superiority was everywhere. In the kitchen, she moved with grace and efficiency, cooking meals that would have taken Chisholm an entire afternoon in minutes. At the fashion shop she ran, Ada spoke English fluently, negotiated with suppliers, managed accounts, and motivated her employees. Ada's competence was quiet but undeniable, and every glance, every action, reminded Chisholm of her own inertia. Chisholm tried to maintain her pride, convincing herself that her beauty still gave her leverage, that Chidi's admiration for her would eventually eclipse Ada's history. But each interaction chipped away at her certainty. She attempted to prepare dinner one evening, dropping utensils, burning the soup, and tripping over a stray rug. Ada watched, silently amused, correcting nothing, simply shaking her head in mild disbelief. Chisholm's embarrassment transformed into a mix of jealousy and humiliation. She realized that Ada's power was not in her presence, but in her competence, her intelligence, her history with Chidi. One day they were discussing a minor issue about household finances. After Chisholm's opinion, Chidi remarked casually, "Ada can never think like this. You have a long way to go." Ada understands ambition. She built something for herself. "What have you built?" Chisholm froze. She had nothing, no degree, no skill, no plan beyond her beauty. Every indulgence in pride and laziness now appeared as wasted potential, and the weight of her inadequacy pressed on her chest. Jealousy simmered within her, a strange mix of rage, fear, and fascination. Ada was not arrogant, but her presence reminded Chisholm that life required more than beauty. It demanded effort, intellect, loyalty, and resilience. Chisholm had married for wealth, for admiration, for comfort, but she now realized that money alone did not command respect. Her beauty, once her shield and currency, was now insufficient against Ada's quiet authority. Late one night, Chisholm sat alone in the expansive living room, staring at the polished floors and high ceilings, wondering how she had imagined this would be easy. She remembered every day she had refused school, every opportunity she had ignored, every moment she had spent admiring herself rather than learning. She realized that in her quest for comfort, she had neglected growth. Her jealousy of Ada burned sharply, but it was also illuminating. If she wanted to have a place that mattered, she could not rely on beauty or wealth alone. She had to earn it, build it, claim it through effort and skill. The realization hit her with sudden clarity. She could continue as she was, living in the shadow of Ada, a beautiful but inconsequential second, or she could rise. She could choose discomfort, labor, and learning as a path to becoming someone who commanded respect on her own terms. Chisholm resolved, for the first time, that she would not remain second. She got registered in a beauty academy and started her difficult journey to triumph. Chisholm sat in the small classroom of the beauty academy, her hands shaking slightly as she held the scissors for the first time. The room smelled of hairspray and hair dye. She looked around at the younger girls, some barely out of secondary school, moving their tools with practiced ease. Her pride bristled, but Chisholm realized she had to learn, no matter how humbling it felt. Her first attempt at cutting a mannequin's hair was disastrous. Strands fell unevenly, some sticking out awkwardly like little spikes. One of the younger students, a bright-eyed girl named Hannah, leaned over and gently corrected her grip. "You're holding it too stiffly. Loosen your hands, see." Chisholm's face flushed red. She muttered something under her breath about how she had never needed lessons before, but she listened, adjusting her grip as instructed. She tried again. The scissors still clipped too much in one spot, leaving an uneven patch, but this time, she caught herself before pulling more strands. "See, that's better," Hannah said with a kind smile. Chisholm forced a laugh, embarrassed yet secretly grateful. For the first time in her life, she felt the sting of humility. She had invested everything in wealth, comfort, and beauty, but nothing in herself. The voiceover echoed in her mind. She had invested everything in wealth, but nothing in herself. The next days were a blur of mistakes and corrections. Chisholm spilled hair dye on her hands, burned a mannequin's ear with a curling iron, and accidentally glued her finger to a wig. Each blunder made her cheeks burn and her stomach twist, but slowly, she began to adapt. She observed the others, practiced late into the evening in her own room, and started taking notes. Her pride fought every lesson, every correction, but gradually, determination began to outweigh embarrassment. Chisholm also enrolled in makeup artistry classes, where brushes, powders, and color palettes were foreign to her at first. Her first attempts were comically bad, eyeliner jagged, eyeshadow smudged, foundation uneven. One instructor, a tall woman with a sharp eye, leaned over and said, "Start light, Chisholm. You cannot cover mistakes with more mistakes." Chisholm blinked, feeling a mix of irritation and awe. The words stung but resonated. Slowly, she learned to blend, contour, and apply with precision, repeating the motions until they became muscle memory. Outside the classroom, she began to wake early, rising before dawn to practice on mannequins and volunteers. She made mistakes, yes, but she also celebrated small victories, a perfect curl, a smooth eyeliner line, a hairstyle that stayed intact. Her confidence began to grow, not as a natural extension of her beauty, but as something she had earned through effort. She started accepting small clients, friends, and neighbors who paid little but gave her space to refine her skills. She saved every coin, reinvesting it in better tools and materials, proud of the fact that she could generate income with her own hands. In the mansion, Chidi noticed subtle changes. Chisholm's posture shifted from arrogance to focus. Chisholm's days became a montage of persistence and transformation. Morning classes, afternoon practice sessions, evenings spent reading tutorials and experimenting with new techniques. Her hands became nimble, her movements precise. She no longer felt ashamed when younger students corrected her. Instead, she welcomed it as part of the learning process. Laughter often accompanied mistakes, a humorous wig mishap here, a streaked lipstick there. But every error pushed her closer to skill, closer to independence. One afternoon, Chidi returned from his office to find Chisholm meticulously practicing a new braid pattern. She glanced up briefly, focused and determined, then returned to her work. He smiled to himself, noticing the shift in her energy, her focus, and her attitude. He did not interrupt. He did not praise or critique. By the end of several months, Chisholm's transformation was undeniable. Her hands were skilled, her confidence had deepened, and her clients were growing in number. She still had moments of self-doubt, but they no longer held her back. Chisholm saved money from working for people and got a small beauty studio, though her husband supported her, but she promised to pay back. Chisholm moved through her small beauty studio with a confidence she had never known before. The mirrors reflected not just her image, but the woman she had become, hands skilled, mind sharp, and spirit determined. Clients came and went, some bringing friends along, impressed with her ability to create styles and looks that drew admiration. Chidi entered quietly, observing from the doorway. He watched as Chisholm made beautiful hairs, gesturing patiently and explaining techniques clearly. Her confidence was tangible. He remembered the prideful, lazy girl who had walked into his mansion months ago, demanding comfort and wealth without effort. Now, he saw someone entirely different. He smiled softly, letting her work, waiting for the moment she would notice him. Later, as the studio emptied, Chidi stepped forward, his tone serious now. "Chisholm," he began, "I need to tell you something." She turned to face him, curiosity and anticipation mixing in her chest. "What is it?" "I wasn't always spending all that time with Ada," he admitted, his eyes steady. "Yes, she's important to me. Yes, everything about our past is true, but I exaggerated some things. I made you feel like second, not because I wanted to hurt you, but because I needed you to grow." Chisholm blinked, processing the words. "Wait, so all this, the jealousy, the insecurity, all of it, it was your plan?" she asked, her voice a mix of incredulity and humor. She laughed softly, shaking her head. "So all this was your plan?" "Yes," Chidi said, nodding. "I liked you from the beginning, but your mindset scared me. You saw life as comfort, not growth. I knew if I handed you everything, you would never discover yourself. I needed you to want more for yourself. Not for me. For you." The words settled over Chisholm like a warm dawn. She felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, admiration, and a touch of embarrassment. She had endured months of jealousy, awkwardness, and the sting of comparison, yet it had forged her into someone capable, determined, and self-aware. The very discomfort she had once despised had become the catalyst for her transformation. "I needed an industrial woman to manage my finances," Chidi said. "And I knew if I had let you, you will spend all my money and leave us dry and broke." Chisholm laughed softly, a light, almost incredulous sound. "I can't believe it," she said, shaking her head. "I spent so long hating the process, and it turns out it was exactly what I needed." Chidi smiled, his eyes reflecting pride and warmth. Before Chisholm could respond further, a knock echoed through the studio door. Both turned toward it, a moment of curiosity cutting through the intimate conversation. Chisholm moved forward to open it, and there, standing with effortless poise, was Ada. She looked radiant as always, her presence commanding attention without a word. "I'm relocating," Ada announced gently, her voice calm but carrying the weight of finality. "New city. Bigger branch." Chisholm felt her heart skip a beat, the tension of the past months suddenly finding resolution. Ada stepped inside, hugged Chidi briefly, and then turned to Chisholm. Her eyes held a mixture of pride and warmth. "I'm proud of you,"
It was
she whispered.
nice being here.
"You've grown.
Bye.
You've built something that is
Safe
yours."
Trip. Thank
Chisholm
you.
blinked, a smile spreading across her face. In that moment, she realized something profound. Ada had never been her enemy. She had been a mirror, a challenge, a quiet force that pushed Chisholm to discover herself. All the discomfort, all the jealousy, all the feelings of
Your
being
hair is
second
looking
had been
fabulous
necessary.
today. Thank you.
Ada
It
held
feels so
both their
soft.
hands briefly,
Just a little more shine.
a smile warm and encouraging. "Build well," she said, then stepped back, her figure poised as she walked toward the door. Chisholm felt a rush of gratitude and understanding, recognizing that she had finally met the standard she had once feared. As the door closed behind Ada, Chisholm turned to Chidi, her eyes bright with emotion. "I understand now," she said softly. "I see why it had to happen this way. I see why I had to become more than I was." Months passed, and the studio thrived. Word of mouth brought new clients daily, and Chisholm's reputation grew beyond Owari. She managed her finances carefully, reinvested in tools, and even hired more stylists to train under her guidance. Each day was an affirmation of her growth. She was no longer the pampered girl who believed beauty alone could command life. She was a woman who understood that skill, discipline, and perseverance created lasting value. The story of Chisholm ended not with wealth or admiration alone, but with triumph, self-discovery, and a woman who had finally met herself. Don't just watch. Let this channel inspire your journey. Subscribe now. Comment and share the story.